Hello everybody, I'm that Kamen Rider guy, and welcome to episode 5 of TOKU Explained. Yeah! So, in this video, I'm going to be explaining why there are 2 Kamen Riders, not as a whole like the whole main rider and secondary rider, but 2 Kamen Riders in the very first Kamen Rider. Obviously just titled Kamen Rider that aired back in 1971. And I'm, of course, referring to Ichigo and Nigo. And it's actually really interesting why there are 2 of them. Now, I'm not talking about story-wise, like the whole thing with Shocker, Second Cyborgs, all that. No, what I'm referring to is why they introduced a secondary rider in the first place. So for those who don't know, back in the day, during the first Kamen Rider, they originally intended for it to be a lone wolf kind of story. And for it to be one man who fights against this entire evil organization because he's the only one with the power to do it. Now, yes, I know he's not 100% alone, but I mean like when he's fighting the cyborgs, the big baddies. He's the only one who literally has the power to do it. So, the main actor of Takeshi Hongo, aka this legend right here, was a very well-established actor before he even got into Kamen Rider. And he did his own stunts. Now, I'm pretty sure he was already a licensed stuntman at the time, though it may have come after, I'm not sure. Long story short, he does his own stunts, and he did back in the day all the time. Which means when you would see him in the Ichigo armor, that is actually him wearing the Kamen Rider suit, and him doing all his own stunts, and fighting all the bad guys. And this meant he was also on the motorcycle all the time. Now, during one stunt with the motorcycle, something didn't quite go as planned because that just happens sometimes. You can have all the prep and coordination you want, but things are just bound to eventually not go as planned. Just ask any of the Ryuki riders. The stuntman got hurt a lot during that show. Anyways, and unfortunately, he broke his leg. Now, this, of course, a broken leg is much more severe than, say, cracked ribs or a fracture, because it was a clean break. So he had to be admitted to the hospital for some time. Now, not wanting to stop the show because it was very popular, and just stopping it out of nowhere would have caused a lot of confusion, and it could have even been dropped by TV producers at the time. So, what Toei did, and what the main creator did, they introduced a secondary rider. They found a new actor, had him come in, fill the shoes of Takeshi Hongo for a time, and originally he was meant to be a placeholder. Like, hey, I'm another cyborg from Shocker, and I have turned against them because I also have a strong sense of justice. And for a time, it was great because he wore the exact same armor. He had a similar belt with slight differences. Just very minor, nothing too major. And then when Takeshi Hongo was healed, again, I know that's the actor's name, or not the character's name, not the actor's. But anyways, when he was all healed and he was able to return back, they just switched back out. But audiences, TV critics, and even the crew really liked the idea of 2 riders. Now, this would not be something that would carry on into future Kamen Riders, with the exceptions of, say, rivals or sidekicks, which is not the same thing as a secondary rider. A secondary rider is someone who could stand alone, or, if need be, replace the main rider. They're similar on power scale, but not quite. But with Ichigo and Nigo, the only thing that separated their power was experience, with Ichigo being a bit stronger because he was at it for a bit more than him. So they brought on both riders, and when I say exceptions, I mean like the stuff with Black and Shadow Moon, and Stronger and Ladybug Girl. But anyways, they just switched up his gloves and boots. As you can see, they just gave him different boots, but they kept everything the same, because at the time, they didn't really want to create a whole new rider armor when they had already introduced him as to having the same armor. So they made, again, very slight tweaks, but it worked. And audiences loved it, and they were together throughout the entire 98 episode runtime. Crazy, isn't it? Now, yes, while secondary riders would not really be a thing until the Heisei era, there were times when older Showa riders would come in to help the new guy. like when Ichigo Nigo very often fought with V3, and then V3 helped Riderman a lot, etc., etc., etc. There were still team-ups. And then, of course, movies, but that come a bit further down the road. So, yes, the reason there is a secondary rider in the original Kamen Rider is simply because the actor broke his leg and had to, unfortunately, be removed for it at a time. And, fun fact, another little fun fact of this video, that is also why very, very rarely will the actual actors be the stunt performers as well. Because after that incident, there was a bunch of legal troubles. Not because anyone was suing anyone, there was just legal troubles, because that is bound to happen when stunts go wrong. There's investigations, and people want to know exactly what happened. Was it intentional, or was it just bad luck? So, now, in majority of Toku shows, unless you are a licensed stuntman, or you have experience doing stunts to where you have you don't have a license, but you have permission from a legal perspective to put your body in danger, because the stunts they do are very real, they use real explosions, etc. Most actors are not, obviously they're not the same as the stunt performers, but the only way to do both is if you're a licensed stuntman. So going forward, very rarely would the actual actors be in the suits themselves. Now, that might seem common nowadays, but back in the day, not so common, and people were very shocked to hear that the actual actors were not performing their own stunts. And another reason they performed their own stunts in the Showa days was simply budget. At the time, they couldn't afford to hire extra stuntmen. So, that's all I got for this episode of Toku Explained. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Please check out my other Toku Explained videos. Hopefully I'll have this episode out before my current podcast that I'm doing with my buddy. Yes, the podcast, JoJo Bros, is coming back. I hope I can get this out before then, but because of my work schedule that's coming up, maybe not, we'll see. Anyways, don't forget, it's always Henshin time!